At this point, we've worked through many of the more commonly used commands that you'll find in library apps. This is a great time to review the ribbon and see what else is available that we might want to know about. Let's start with files, and we've worked this area earlier. This is where we can create a new document based on the template, upload a document, create a new folder, and remember that as soon as you select a document or any file, the rest of the ribbon lights up. In the Open and Checkout group, we have the ability to edit the document and to check it out, check it in, or discard the checkout. We talked about checkout earlier in the course. In the Manage section, we have the ability to view the properties and also edit the properties of a particular document. So if, for example, I learned that the Land and Hotels Team Site Guide really doesn't belong to Events Coordination, it belongs to the IT group, I can select that document, click Edit Properties, and have access to the metadata so that I can change it. It's still an application. No, the Land and Hotels Team Site Guide is a document, and it belongs to Information Tech. So now I've made those changes to the properties. I can click Save, and that's an easy way for me to be able to quickly modify those properties, remembering, of course, that I could also simply switch to the Quick Edit view and modify the properties for a number of documents at the same time. Also in the Manage section, I have the ability to view the version history of a document, see who it's been shared with, and provided I have the appropriate permissions, to delete the selected document or documents. In the next section, Share and Track, I have access to social networking features in SharePoint. I can share a document. I can also ask to get alerts whenever this document changes. So if I need to know if a document's being modified, perhaps a group of us are working on the budget and I want to know when it's been changed, I'd like to have information about it, I can set an alert on this specific document and either get email information or get texts on my phone when the document has been modified. This is the title of the alert. Remember that if it's coming by email, it has the name of the library, it has the name of the document, expense form instructions. If you want something else, if you want to say someone changed this document, that's fine. This is who the alerts go to. I have the ability to receive alerts by email. I'm not configured to set them up for text messaging. That's done at the server level, and I have not enabled that delivery method. Notice that I have the ability to send alerts for specific types of changes. If anything changes, if someone other than me changes a document so that I'm not getting an alert when I changed it, if someone else creates a document created by me or changes a document last modified by me, some of these choices are library level choices. Typically, if I'm setting an alert on a document, the one I'll set is someone else changes a document. And then you have 3 different choices of when alerts should be sent based on your own level of need for notification. If I want to know right away, if I would find myself going into this library every few minutes or emailing somebody and saying, make sure you text or email me as soon as you've made those changes, well then I can get them off the hook by asking SharePoint to send me a notification immediately. On the other hand, perhaps all I want to know is what documents have been changed, and I'd like to know that at the end of the day or the end of a week, and if I choose either daily or weekly, I have the ability to set a time or to set a time and a day. But if I would like to know every time this particular document has changed and receive an email about it, this is how I set an alert. If I want to manage alerts that I have set here and on other documents, right here is the command to do that in the Share and Track group. With the document selected, I can see reports on what documents are being used the most. I can follow a document. When I follow a document, it's similar to an alert, but anytime the document is modified, I'll get information about that, not in an email or a text message, but in my SharePoint news feed, which is another nifty way to get information and cuts down on my email volume. So you need to decide, would you rather be alerted or would you rather follow a document? I'm going to follow this document for right now. Notice it says I'm now following this document. In the copies section, I can do some interesting things. We already talked about the ability to download a copy of a document. And remember, when you do, you're no longer opening it from the site. You're actually making a copy. So if you make modifications to that copy, you can't easily synchronize them back here to the site. And in some libraries, you absolutely can't. The best you would be able to do in most libraries is upload it with the same name as a new version. But I have the ability to send this document as a copy to another library. And you might wonder, why in the world would I want to do that? Well, the document I have selected is a guide to how we are using our sites in SharePoint. Imagine that I'm creating new project sites all the time, and there are several documents I want all the members of the team to have access to. Here's a project budget. Here's our information from the project management office, the PMO that you need to have. Here are some of our other documents that are required for all projects. And by the way, here's our team site guide as well. Rather than have those documents created and uploaded new in each library, what I could do is I could send a copy of the document. When I do that, it's a synchronized copy. And if I modify Land and Hotels Team Site Guide here, that copy, which I have sent to another library, I'll need to actually choose it, and the click here to test link lets me say, oh, yep, that's the right library. Here would be the file name for that copy. I can give it the same file name, or I could put, for example, copy as part of its name. And if someone is updating the document, I can ask when the author or the person who's modifying it checks that document back in that it automatically send an update. Or I can say, no, don't bother, but create an alert for me when this document changes. Copies are an interesting feature in SharePoint, and if you find yourself wanting to have a set of documents that could change going forward in more than one library, this is a feature you should consider. If you think the document will not change, if this Land and Hotels Team Site Guide isn't going to change in a way that we need to have them updated on all of the sites, then we have another way to do that using templates, which you'll see in just a couple of movies. If we have copies, this is where you manage them. In the Workflow section, I have the ability to go to the Workflows page for this particular library and launch a workflow based on a particular document. So if I have a workflow that would run, for example, on Word documents or on all documents in this library, I can go either start a workflow or I can see the status of a workflow that would have started automatically. This assumes that I've already created workflows to use with this document library. The last section here, tags and notes, is actually a feature that you won't be using. It was a social networking feature of SharePoint. It lasted for a couple of versions, and now it's been deprecated, which means it's on its way out the door. As a matter of fact, if you have tags and notes, your SharePoint administrator can download all of those to a file, but you can't create new tags and you can't create new notes. And some organizations that came to rely on those features are mourning the loss of tags and notes in SharePoint. Those are all the commands related to files. Let's look now at the commands that are library-wide. We've worked extensively with views. With Quick Edit, creating views, modifying views, we know how to create new columns, whether we do it by clicking here or by modifying the view and then adding a column. Notice in the tags and notes group, again, that feature is not enabled and it will drop off the ribbon at some point. I can share and track the entire library. So I can email a link to the library to someone. I can also say I would like to be alerted not to a specific document, but to the library as a whole. And now some of those choices that we saw in alerts begin to make more sense, like when someone else changes a document that was created by me. That doesn't make a lot of sense if I'm looking at a document I created, but when we're looking library-wide, that begins to make more sense. I can visit the RSS feed for a library and subscribe to it so I can receive information about that, for example, in Outlook. And I can, again, see reports on the popularity, not of a specific item, but of all items. The next section is the Connect and Export section. We've already talked about how we would synchronize a library, and that's our first command. The second command which is the command to connect to Outlook, used to allow us to take a library offline through Outlook. You can still do that, but it would be much more likely that you would do that using Sync rather than using Connect to Outlook. We have 3 choices under Connect to Office. You can add a shortcut to this library to Microsoft Office, the core applications, to PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. We can remove this from the list of SharePoint sites, and you can also manage SharePoint sites. While this feature is not listed as deprecated, it is not currently working in this version of SharePoint. If you wanted to look at the items in this list to be able, for example, to count up the items that were owned by events coordination versus accounting, if you wanted to do that type of reporting, or simply have a list of here are all the files in this library, you can export this list to Excel. The next group, which is the Customized Library group, is for extensive customization of the library to be able to work with web parts, set up quick steps, which are action steps, to edit the library using SharePoint Designer. So the customization in that group is beyond the scope of this course. Then finally, the last group, library settings. We've been in the library settings several times. We have the ability to see who this library has been shared with and invite others to the library. And finally, we have the ability to add a new workflow and to look at our workflow settings. That's everything we can do in a library, soup to nuts, in SharePoint.